Hey guys, Ollie the Vanguard Boys here. So I'm sure you've heard the news, but this past weekend, there was a lot of Springfests happening all over the world, and one happened here in Texas, where the Vanguard Boys are from, down in Houston. And of course, we had a few of us go down and competed in all the formats, and my team, Vanguard Boys A Squad, placed third out of 64 teams for V Premium, which was really cool, especially considering I believe in top 8, we were the only team that didn't have a Prism player, which was really cool. So what I plan to do here is obviously show off the deck that I took. I know I've done a Malkuth profile here before, but I'm not sure if I've made any changes since then, but I did a lot of play testing, and this ended up working out, and I'll kind of go over my explanation for my ratios, my matchups, and kind of how a lot of it all went for me. So let's go ahead and get into the deck profile itself. We're going to go ahead and start off with the grade 3s just because that's the easier part. So of course, now my deck is fully max rarity. I managed to pick up a playset of the SVRs before they got bought out. Because, oh my god, it's going to be really hard to build this deck now because there's only a few listings of the VRs, which I might sell mine just because I have an extra playset. And only a few of the SPs for Shin Malkuth. So the entire deck works on a loop of these two together. Basically, this is going to be your main ride target, and the trick to this deck, and it can be considered one of its flaws, is you, as a strength and a weakness, is you'll need to ride this every single turn. You need to generate as many Protect 2 markers as possible. That way your small hand really doesn't hinder you very much in your matchups. Basically, what this one will do, you have the ability to on place. If your opponent's on grade 2, counterblast 2 to deal damage. Now, I'll let you know right now, I like to avoid being at 2 damage when I ride him first. I actually think that even if my opponent's at grade 2, it's really not worth using up those resources, and you want to keep your damage very low since you can play such an early defensive game. But if your opponent's on grade 3, you can counterblast 2 to heal down, which that's a lot more beneficial and allows you to just keep your damage super low while your board is tanky and you're out wasting your opponent's resources. Its other skill allows you to Soul Blast, call up the 3 cards from the drop, the 3 of your front row gets 5k till end of turn, and then you deal yourself a damage. And then, of course, a lot of the combos come from stacking Shin Malkuth on top of your deck for when he's revealed for a damage check. If your Vanguard is Arc Aider, you'll be able to Superior Ride, give your front row continuous plus 10k as long as you have 2 protect markers, which you will the minute you Superior Ride. And then the other cool part, and this is what helped me in my matchups here, is that anything on a protect 2 circle can't be retired. I kind of wish it gave them like resist in general. That would help me out with some weird and awkward matchups, but I will take what I can get. We'll go into the grade 2s. I've got my 4 SPs of Black Aculus Yafkael. Still argue to be like the best grade 2 in the entire clan. Now, well, sometimes I like to be at 0 damage going into my grade 3 turn if I feel like it's an Excel deck like Gold Paladins, and I feel like I don't necessarily need the 1 damage to risk it. But if you do take 1 damage and you have her in her opening hand, she allows you, counterblast, grab a card from your damage zone, and take a damage. So it's a way for you to be able to plus and add cards because this deck doesn't really do that. A lot of the skills are usually card neutral in advantage. Now, something that I'm considering is possibly dropping her down to 3 to tech in some other things that we could put in the deck, but at the same time, she's such a valuable card. It's just that if you're keeping your your damage low and you're using the counterblast to heal each turn, sometimes you might find yourself without an open counterblast, and she doesn't really get any value until maybe in like in the early game or late game if you're trying to force triggers against your opponent. So the next most important grade 2 in the deck is Holy Lord Angel. So Holy Lord Angel works on both Vanguard Circle and Rearguard Circle. He's a top 7 checker that can add either Malkuth. There is a grade 1 Angel that top 7 checks for the Arc Air Malkuth, the original one, and goes into Soul, and she's something I've experimented with in addition to Holy Lord Angel, because I tell you what, if you do not see any Malkuth going into your grade 3 turn, you'll lose. That's actually how I lost one of my matchups, was I wasn't able to get into any Malkuth. I actually missed my G assist, and that ended up hurting me really bad. Alright, so your next grade 2 is, right here, is Amputation Angel. The reason why I have her at 3 is because she is a late game card. If I see her early, I'll commit a few to the board and just like use them as attackers because it's only 5k shield, and you don't mind if they're in the drop because everything that's in the drop is basically like having a second hand for you. So on a Protect 2 circle, she gains plus 15k. That's continuous during your turn and your opponent's turn, by the way. So When she's on a protect marker by herself, she is pretty big. I believe the math is 29, and that is during your opponent's turn as well, so she really can't be taken out if she's sitting there either. They can't attack into the rear guards unless they have like a really, really big column. But also, if you have more than 3 protect markers on the field, she ends up getting a Sentinel Restrict, which is really, really important for that late game push. You ideally want to use her when your opponent is at like 5 damage, because they're going to perfect guard your Vanguard, perfect guard the other rear guard, and then if you check any triggers, you'll put everything on her, and then you'll attack with no Sentinel, and usually this column can hit for anywhere between 70k, you know, with a couple crits, or even higher, like what happened last round with me. So really, really good card. Also, if you need to eat at your opponent's hand early, she helps too, because again, big columns. You're only doing 3 attacks, so you have to make those column bigs. And then this here was something that I think has come in clutch. Before, I was experimenting with Salafael, and I think that's one of the biggest changes I made between my last profile and this one. But Salafael was using a lot of soul, and I found myself not being able to get my rerides off because I didn't have a lot of soul. He'll get just as big as a Salafael. You know, the minute a card is put in your damage, your opponent's damage zone, he picks up 10k, so he picks up 19. He's also a nice board removal, so if you have an opponent who has like a really, really pesky unit, like let's say Thingsaver Dragon and they have Blaster Blade Seeker out in the field and they start their turn with it, they're going to gain a lot of advantage by being able to draw a card. So on attack, you can kick the Blaster Blade Seeker into the damage zone, and they're forced to heal 1. Or another good matchup it's good against is like Luard. They'll put the grade 1 behind Luard that lets their grade 1s intercept. So those are like nice 10k interceptors on the field. And they could intercept, I think, with any of them. So if they have grade 1s back here, but at least lets their grade 1s intercept. You'll on attack and you'll just remove that grade 1. And now they can't intercept, and that actually forces them to use a lot more of their hand, which is something that, like, you know, Luard without Charon can't plus as much as they used to be able to because they can't countercharge, and that also lets you take advantage of that. So nice board removal for when you need it. Also becomes a 19k attacker, so while not as big as Amputation Angel, is still really, really good and gets big, and he's coming clutch. Very good utility card. That's one of my favorite parts about Angel Feather is that they're such a toolbox clan. Alright, so going into the grade 1s, probably the most important grade 1 in the deck is Sectio Angel. With the new support coming out, I'm going to experiment with the new one. It becomes a bigger shield, but it has 2 drawbacks. 1, it has to be on a Protect Circle, and 2, it drops the cannot be chosen by opponents effects. There are just some decks, like let's say Mega Colony, which may not be a high tier deck or a slept on deck. They can just Cradle Marker your front row here. So, you know, if you have her on a protect marker, you can use her as your intercept guard because you're not going to be able to intercept with these 2. Or you have Anj, which will bounce your front row. So maybe like you want to put the protect markers heavy back here because you want to use these ones to guard because Anj can't bounce these ones. And that way you don't get smacked in the face completely against the Pearl Sisters. It's also just nice guard cards. So, you know, even if you don't have a protect marker on it, it's a nice 10k card if they're swinging at you with a smaller unit. It's like having little small 1-card guards. You put it onto a protect circle, all of a sudden it becomes like 32, so it's bigger than a trigger to guard and intercept. So super, super nice unit. Works really, really well. Lots of utility. You could put it pretty much anywhere that you have a protect marker on. I mean, if you hypothetically have a protect marker here, here, and here, and here, I mean, you could pretty much intercept with like 4 units if you need to, you know. So really, really cool card. I really, really like it a lot, and I think it does well in this deck quite a bit. And then this right here was the MVP of this tournament, Persistence Angel. Usually I try to keep 1 out in the field all time and like 1 in my hand. So let's say I miss on my top 7 check for Malkuth, or you know I'm doing my other thing and I just don't have another Malkuth to rewrite into my next turn. It's very, very important that you are writing Arcader Malkuth every single turn. So you'll use his skill to Soul Blast 1, draw a card, discard a card, and stack the Shin Malkuth, so that way you trigger the effects, that way you can superior ride. But then if you use a second one of him, you can Soul Blast the Arcader Malkuth, draw a card, discard a card, and then stack that Malkuth, and then use it with your drive check. Or if you have Holy Order in your hand and you haven't used it quite yet, that's another way just to get it for free. I actually don't mind having it on my drive checks, because the thing is 9 times out of 10, they're going to PG your Vanguard. It's the one thing that they can, you know, guard if you have the Sentinel Restrict unit on, or they're not sure about your drive checks and they don't want to have to deal with you like hitting 2 crits and then things like that and whatnot. So they're usually going to guard your Vanguard attack. And then what I've noticed in tournaments, a lot of people weren't guarding it. They'll be like, oh, well, he's only going to check one trigger at most, so no guard, and then it ends up being like, Malkuth, okay, add it to my hand, second check, critical trigger, which you'll give the crit to Malkuth, and then power to one of your units to make it even bigger than it already is. So you don't actually mind, as long as you get Malkuth in your hand every turn to just keep writing, you can even heal down and take the damage. You're using your board to defend for you anyways. So while it's nice to always have more cards in hand, it's even better to have your Malkuth, which is super, super ideal for our win condition. And then lastly, I'm running Black Hole Nakir. Now this is something that can be experimented with. The one thing I really like about Nakir is, of course, is that she can add your heal trigger, the grade 3 heal trigger. And the reason why that's important is if you want to keep your damage low, if you don't want to be at any damage and you want to use minimal cards in your hand, use the heal trigger, because, you know, adding plus 10, you're now using a lot smaller guards. You might even make it where you guard it once, they don't check any triggers, and their turn just ends and you have no damage. So it's a nice one card guard. You know, she's also 10k. Even if you call her out, while you can't proc her skill from if you call her out from drop, she does gain plus 5k if you put a card in any damage zone, so she can make a rear guard even bigger if you're trying to go for your push turn. So if you know that your opponent is not going to be able to guard it out this turn, you want to make sure that, like, even checking in defensive won't help him out. You put that behind, like, you know, your amputation angels, and you have 13k boosters here, which is really, really nice. 18k if you put protect markers there, just to have them boost with. So really, really cool stuff right there. And then lastly, my last grade 1 is kind of a tech-in. I'm actually considering cutting this. Serrated Slot Angel is really good, but like I said, you're trying to keep your damage low as possible. So the counterblast, to bind it to, you know, either re-ride or stack it, it is really nice, and I'm sure that, like, I could have been in a situation where it would come up, and I did see it a lot, but I ended up just using it as shield because I just kept Persistent Angels, and I always made sure that I had Persistent Angels and the Sectio Angel to keep guarding with. So I always made sure that I was able to, like, if I just didn't have the other Malkuth, I made sure I was getting back to it, and I would use Persistence Angel to ride. It's a good emergency card, but what I think I might replace it with is Lamedo, just because, like, during your push turn, you know, let's say you call 2 Amputation Angels out here, you can call this out here, and you can make all 3 attacks Sentinel Restrict. So it's something to play about. There's a lot of cool tech slots. I mean, since everything you can discard and guard with everything in this deck and revive it using Malkuth, you have a lot of options. Now, lastly, for the triggers, I'm playing a 10 trigger lineup. So I got Critical Hit Angel, Hot Shot, Celestial Angel, and then 2 Critinals, which the Critinals are nice against Excel decks because it's, you know, 1 card guards. You know, you don't have a lot of cards in your hand, so using a PG can kind of really hurt, but there's going to be times where you really, really need it. Like, you know, basically if you get late in the game with Luard, this quite isn't going to cut it with your entire board. You don't want to take 2 crits. You don't want to no-guard the Vanguard. So, you know, of course, so there's 10 crits, so it's not 12. And I have the 2 draw triggers, which, you know, if it hits your damage zone, you draw cards, awesome. Then you can use the off-KL to, like, counterblast it, add it back up to your hand, and take a damage and get, like, a free +1. And now you have the PG that you can guard with next to your opponent if you're really worried about that. And then, of course, lastly, you have the heal triggers. And again, even if these end up hitting the damage zone, doesn't matter because you can always grab it back with the off-KL, especially during, like, your grade 2 turn, and your opponent's going to be at grade 3 before you. Or even if they're going to be grade 2, just counterblast it, add it, and now you can just make sure that they don't, you know, hit you for any more damage in the turn without having to use a lot of cards. So yeah, so that's the lineup, and yeah, so let's talk about my matchups and kind of how they went and kind of what I had to do. So in round 1, like I said, we had a 5-1 record in Swiss, so we only had 1 loss as a team, and then in Top Cut we had 2 wins, 1 loss, and we ended up getting 3rd place because we won the first round of Top Cut, lost the 2nd round, and then we won the runner-up round to get us 3rd place. So in round 1, I went up against Revengers because one of the things we talked about in, you know, you have to choose your slots A, B, and C. We know that, like, at our locals we play test and we practice a lot, and we know that, like, Luard is a problem, or at least it is in our locals. And so one thing we thought we would see is Luard and Prism and Grand Blue. Those are the matchups that we thought we would see. I actually do pretty decent against Grand Blue because I can usually keep my damage low, guard out everything, and then even if I have to take the 2 big attacks from the big boys, you know, I'm usually healing 1 every single turn, and then my protect markers keep getting bigger until a point that all it takes is, like, 2 intercepts, you know, like a Sectio at my grade 2 to guard one of their dragons. Ironically, I ended up bricking against that matchup, and so I wasn't able to do that. But against any Shadow Paladin deck, anything on a Protect 2 marker because of Shin Malkuth can't be retired. So in round 1, winning against the Revengers, super cool team, super great guys. I just was able to maintain advantage, keeping my damage low, eating at his hand. He wasn't able to do a lot of his like multi-Vanguard swings because of discarding cards, and he knew that I was going to be able to swing for big numbers. But he played the matchup very, very smart. It's just I had pretty good advantage against Shadow Paladin clans. So that's how round 1 went, and so that was pretty cool. And like I said, we won that one as a team. Second round, we also won as a team. Omar and Noah won against their matchups, and so I was like last place. I was grinding up against a Darker Regular deck, which I thought was going to be a Sharat deck, which, I mean, it basically was, but he stuck to Amon. So he kept sucking up my rear guards, which, you know, doesn't help me in the deck. It's actually kind of a poor matchup for me in that regard. And he kept riding Amon. He never rode into Sharat. And also my drop. So I had nothing to call from drop, nothing to call on the field. I was able to still do big attacks, and I pushed him to 5, and his hand wasn't very big. So, you know, basically I had to look at it this way. If he checks 1 trigger, I live. If he checks 2 triggers, I lose. So I made it 2 to pass, and he was very, very smart. He only had 1 other rear guard to attack with. He put the crit onto the rear guard, and he put the power onto Amon, because Amon was already swinging for 2 crits. And then he hit a second trigger, and it was another crit, and so then he did all effects to Amon, and I was at 3 damage, I think, at that point. I was taking 4 to the face. So very, very rough there. So it happens. You know, that's the game. But we run it as a team. And then round 3, we ended up losing as a team. I know that Noah won his game because he was undefeated in Swiss. Omar lost. And then just unfortunately, not only was I going second against Night Rose, I ended up basically bricking. I didn't see Malkuth at all. Didn't even see Shin Malkuth. Mostly had triggers in my hand. I think I had like 3 or 4 triggers after my grade 2 turn. And I was trying to fish. I missed on my top 5 checker. I didn't see anything, not even a heal trigger. And while I put a lot of pressure on them, I had a really good grade 2 game, you know, put them at 4. I survived their first grade 3 turn, but the problem is if I had actually chose to guard their last attack, I would have drawn right into Malkuth, which I didn't know. My thought process was, if I'm going to have to G-assist, I might as well have some cards left in hand so I can keep guarding on the next turn after I rebuild my board, since I'm going to have to remove 2 from the game. Well, I took the Malkuth into damage from his last attack, and then when I did my top 5 check for the G-assist, there was no Malkuth in there at all whatsoever, and I had to play the grade 2 game for another turn, and I just couldn't survive. I didn't have enough cards in hand to guard, didn't have enough pressure against him, and so I lost that round, and that unfortunately lost us that round. Round 4, we had another team win. I played another Avengers deck. He actually decked out against me. I was just able to keep my damage low, and I know that deck was going to keep rewriting and attacking, rewriting and attacking. I made sure to put protect markers all over my field for anything that didn't have a resist effect like Sectio Angel did, so couldn't get any retires off board, at least for the most part, and I was just able to intercept guard. I used double Persistent Angel to constantly, you know, do my effect, and then fish out the other Malkuth. And I was able to pull a victory for that one. Round 5, we actually played one of our home teams. So it was kind of, you know, it was fun to see them. They were doing really, really great at that point. They were just like us. They only had 1 loss. And we ended up beating them. I played against Luard, which, like I said before, we have a really good matchup against Luard. And so we took a team on that one, which was really, really cool. Great kids. They are literally the best Vanguard players in our locals. You know, it came down to a really, really intense game, and everyone played it out really, really well. And so it was really cool. And then in round 6, I ended up going against Gurgawit. It was another team win. And against Gurgawit, I was really surprised that I did so well. I basically did what I normally do. I made sure I stayed at 0 damage because I know that like their acceleration game could be really cool. You know, they didn't do any superior writing or anything like that. I think they were playing the superior write engine in it. I'm not sure. So it was just like normal 1-2 grade 3 game. And then they didn't have Percival, which really, really helped out on their first turn. They got it on the second turn. But at that point, my interceptors were big because I was going first. I could 1-card guard mostly everything. I took maybe 2. I would try to take 2 damage a turn, and then I would fish for Malkuth and then heal every single turn to keep my damage low. And at a certain point, I was able to just like outgrind. I forced him to use his counterblast with Gurgawit, so that way, like, you know, he'd do the cop call, look for the sentinel, you know, whatever he could to guard with. And I just, at a certain point, my units were too big, couldn't guard, and I was able to take the victory. And that put us at 3rd place. And then overall, and we did deck checks and all that stuff. So we go into Top Cut. We actually end up playing a different team we hadn't seen before, and he played Gurgit as well. He played Excel 1, which was actually kind of interesting, and I think that's actually what gave me the advantage. Even when he saw Percival early, he wasn't drawing from his Excel markers, and they were plus 5k more, which did make them bigger, which is always scarier, but his hand was a lot smaller. So I was able to apply a lot more pressure and just did the same thing that I normally do, keep fishing out the Malkuths, using amputation for like large attacks, and I got the win on that one. And then second round, we had the team lost. That was our first loss in Top Cut, the only loss in Top Cut, and I ended up playing against another Gurgit, and I made the mistake of not reading cards. He ended up playing a grade 2 Liberator that I've never seen played in Gurgit before, which I thought I was pretty familiar with, and I had a Yafkael in my hand, and I thought, oh, hey, cool, he's going to hit me. I'll have, I'm going first, I'll be able to take advantage and have a bigger hand than him and try to outgrind him that way. And I hit him with a crit on that previous turn, too. Actually, maybe he went first. I don't remember. I know I had hit him with a crit, and he hit me with a crit back. So it ended up putting me at 2, but not only that, it had an on-hit to check the top card of the deck, and it was a Wonder Ezel. He calls the Wonder Ezel. The Wonder Ezel calls Superior calls another one of the Liberators from hand, which forced me to end up having to use 2 cards to guard the other attack. So I kind of regret that. I feel like if I had just guarded and stayed at 0, I would have been fine. But that is what it is. And then he did his big push turn. He didn't have Percival the first round. He got Percival in the second time. And I wasn't counting things. He did check a crit trigger on his drive checks, but he put the crit on an Aglavale. And I ended up guarding a Percival I didn't need to guard, and ended up swinging with the Aglavale, and I had 2 crits. I would say this is my one genuine misplay of the entire tournament that I know that, like, had I remembered it had a crit, because there was no marker on it and I should have been paying attention more, I would have been able to let the Percival hit me, and I actually would have hit a defensive, would even help, but I had enough cards in hand to guard the Aglavale anyways, and I would have survived. But at that point, my team had also lost. So we ended up going for runner-up, which we found out, which was pretty cool, that like we got to play another round, and we ended up meeting the team we played in the very, very first round again, which was really cool, very much an anime moment, really nice guys. And Noah got his win. Omar lost against our Prism player. Prism, he played mostly Prism matchups in B, which was kind of funny. And the Revengers player, he was having a really good push against me. I was getting pretty nervous, but I was able to keep riding Malkuth, trying to keep my damage down, trying to be able to guard and intercept everything. And then on my push turn, I decided to go with double Amputation Angel to get the guard restrict on both of them. I had rear guards on every circle, and I hit Yafkael's ability to fish out another grade 1 from my damage zone. I hit a critical trigger, which I put all effects to amputation, and then I called out another booster here for this column. I attacked with my Vanguard, he PG'd it. I think he had about 5 cards left in hand, and on the drive check I hit 2 more crits. I put all effects onto Amputation Angel, so Amputation Angel was swinging for 97,000, 4 crits, no sentinels, which at that point I was like, am I playing Hamiel again? This is hilarious. And that right there, I knew he could heal once because he was at 3, and he did end up healing once, but the last 2 damage went through. So yeah, Amputation Angel, really, really good card. Starting to skyrocket. I think I bought mine for like $4 or $5. It's now $13 or $15, especially now that you've seen a couple of Malkuths. I'm one of 2 players in the entire world to be on a team with Malkuth so far out of the 15 regionals. Not counting the Asian regions, because I think theirs are just about to start. So yeah, that's my deck right there. It was really, really fun, and be sure to stay tuned. We're going to be posting the other deck profiles for Omar and Noah next as well. And yeah, we just had a really, really great experience. I got my certificate here with my congratulations promo card, so that's definitely going up in my office. It's probably my best accomplishment as a card fighter. And before I go, one thing I wanted to bring up too, I have a friend named Will who owns a company called Procyon Gaming, and at the tournament we ended up using his oversleeves, which they aren't Japanese size, but they're smaller than standard size. He actually ended up getting permission from the head judge. Always check with the head judge before use anything. But we wanted to use our character sleeves because I just don't like the feel of just single sleeving Dragon Shield, especially since now it's a max rarity deck, and I like showing it off. And I had bought these sleeves before she got her retrain for V announced, which was pretty exciting, and ended up being Protect 2 support, so I feel like thematically it fits really, really well. So we ended up using them, and they're great. They feel very similar to the Bushiroad sleeves, but I think they're a lot less stiff. So like when you sleeve them, your deck isn't, you know, poofy and stacked up high. They fit the character sleeves really well. That's what Will recommends. We don't use Dragon Shield to put them inside. They fit a lot better with the character sleeves in there, and there's a lot less seam allowance. And they're really cheap. It was only $10. I actually have an affiliate link, so if you want to get yourself some really nice oversleeves, I really recommend checking them out. The affiliate link will be in the description below. I know my local shop here, Shenanigans, who also is one of our sponsors for our team, is going to start carrying them, and I'm really excited to be able to continue to use them more, so that way I can, you know, keep blinging out my decks with the awesome character sleeves. And yeah, that'll be that, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you give that, you know, make sure if you want to check out more content on the channel, we always do deck profiles. We'll try to get more content soon. And so give us a like, give us a video, comment on the video, and subscribe.